Amud HaTfilah, and the piece here is from the Tzavos Rivash, number 28, Kuf Ches. Neshama Amru Larav, the Baal Shem Tov Neshama revealed to him, Shema shezocher shenizgalu elav advarim elyonim, lo mipnei shelomid harbe b'shasi poiskim. Rak mishum tefillah shoy mispal atom bekavona gedoyla, misham zocher l'mal elyonim. So the soul of the Baal Shem Tov reveals to him. The soul of the Baal Shem Tov is known amongst those who believe in the Baal Shem Tov as the soul of Mashiach. Because the Baal Shem Tov came into the world in order to teach the ways of truth. The ways of truth relate directly to the angels that create reality, and those angels are all dressed up in body parts, in bodily functions, in organs and limbs. And so these angels are running reality at all times. These angels are the messengers between the creator and creation, between the one that's creating the experience and the one that's having the experience. And so these angels have been forgotten, and we're thinking in terms that don't relate to how these angels function, and therefore we can't, no matter how much we try, align ourselves with the true nature of the experience. We need a wisdom that's going to attach us to the nature of how we are. Because a natural connection that we have when we're born has been disconnected by the events that took place after we were born. And so now we need some type of a wisdom to reattach to ourselves, to relearn how to be us. The Baal Shem Tov's mission was to teach that wisdom. It was to help people heal from the wounds of the long exile. And which part of the exile creates wounds? There are two parts. There are wounds in intelligence, and there are wounds in emotion. Ignorance offends intelligence. When humanity behaves ignorantly, then those who observe, even those who try to search for the Creator, seem to think that the Creator is unreasonable, because humanity is demonstrating the intelligence. In exile, there is ignorance. Exile means we don't know the true nature of the wisdom that we are teaching and passing on from generation to generation. And so in exile, the intelligence gets offended. That's one wound that knocks out the soul. But then there's an additional offense that happens in exile, and that's the emotional wound that gets created by cruelty. Cruelty knocks out the spirit. Intelligence knocks out the soul, if there's a lack of intelligence. And a lack of kindness brings down the spirit. And then the exile sustains itself. The exile is feeding on itself. The being that doesn't exist, that's imagining itself inside humanity, gets to continue imagining itself as if it does exist. And therefore humanity cannot rid itself of the disease. If we eliminate cruelty and ignorance, we bring about redemption. This was the mission of the Baal Shem Tov. And so his soul, which is the soul of the Redeemer, his soul reveals to him that redemption does not come from learning the rules. The rules were designed for exile, and they sustain exile. And they allow for exile to continue the survival of the species, the survival of the nation, because naturally in exile, within a few generations, there should be nothing left of us. So we need a special recipe that's going to keep us alive in exile. And that special recipe was coded into our patterns of behavior, was coded into the laws, was coded into the rules that we're adhering to. These are the rules of exile. And so the Redeemer, the soul of the Redeemer reveals that you will not get out of exile by knowing better the rules of exile. You will get out of exile when your intelligence wakes up and is begging for something different. When you have realized that this is unnatural for you, that you don't belong here. That's what might get you released from exile. That's the beginning of the process that's going to get you out of exile. And so the neshama reveals to the Baal Shem Tov that the reason that he came to such deep realizations is not because he learned a lot. There was this tzad to think that it's because he learned a lot, because the Baal Shem Tov learned a lot. Unlike what some tried to say about him early on. Those who didn't know him, because they didn't know his way, they didn't understand. But he learned a lot, otherwise his neshama wouldn't have to tell him that that's not the reason. The neshama revealed to him something that wasn't obvious, which was that even though he learned so much, that's not the reason why he was liberated. That's not the cause. Because what we learn today is so much lower, so distant from the Torah that was learned in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, that no matter how much of it we learn, for the most part, we're not really getting to the essence of what's being said. We're not even touching the thing itself. And even though the Baal Shem Tov's learning obviously was on a much higher level and was different than our learning, and was getting to the essence of things, yet our learning is a form of a negotiation. We're evolving, we're discovering, we're becoming. Redemption is something else. Redemption is not part of our evolution. Redemption is our realization that the way that we are evolving is inefficient. This is not the true way to evolve. There's a way to evolve that was designed by nature that is very similar to how a tree evolves. From a seed into a flower, into a little plant, and then a tree with no effort, just by allowing the seed to express itself fully. By creating the conditions and allowing nature to do what it does on its own, because this is what nature does. This is what it was designed to do. The real challenge is to not get in its way. And so learning will not necessarily teach us how to not get in its way. But there's something else that will, and that's surrendering to it. Praying. Attaching ourselves to the deeper truth, even though we don't understand it. Trusting it because it's creating us, it's doing it. You have nothing else to rely on. If that fails, everything fails. So just intelligence alone can tell you, trust it. But when we're surrounded by ignorance and we're surrounded by cruelty, we have a very difficult time trusting it. Not because of what Creator did, but because of what creation is doing. And so this was the revelation. It's not that we're going to learn so much and therefore we're going to come out of Golus. It's that we're going to realize that we don't belong in Golus. There was a mistake. This is just one big mistake. We came into our home. The servant told us to do something, and we listened to the servant. And we listened to him so many times until he became in charge of our home. That's exile. When the son realizes again that he's the son, and he's in charge of the servant, that's when exile comes to an end. And this is the liberation. This is the revelation of higher realities. Why is this the case? And this is a question that comes along many times when we're looking at how life was designed. It's hard for us to understand what is really wanted, what's required from us, because we came into a reality, but it wasn't explained to us appropriately, for whatever reason, without placing any blame. The bottom line is it wasn't explained to us appropriately. And so we're aligning with something that's already there. The rules are there to protect us in some way and to help us not offend things that exist, even though we don't understand them or know or recognize. We don't know that we're offending angels when we do certain actions. But the nature of life is such that everything that we do has implications, has consequences. It's a language that we're speaking. We're not simply playing around with a toy. A human body is the most advanced creature that the universe created. And so this advanced creature has a specific way of how it operates. And we come into that. The rules were there before us. The way that it works was there before us. And we keep on going head to head with it and wondering why it's not yielding to our will. This reality that we're trying to change has been that way for thousands of years, millions of years, billions of years. Who knows? It's just that way. It's not personal. But it will not yield to anyone. Because it is. It was and it will be. And we, our thoughts, our opinions, have to yield. And when we yield, we realize the deeper wisdom in why things are the way that they are. Then we come to appreciate. And this is how we repair the relationship of trust. When we realize the sweetness of the design, we know that we better want his design than our design. We better want his ideas than our ideas. And so here we have a situation where a person has to awaken in order to claim his greatness before the higher secrets will be revealed to him. Why aren't the higher secrets revealed in the first place? And then he will just become big, he will grow. That would seem the kinder option. But the nature of the creature is such that the nerves cannot contain importance beyond its level of development. So if we're going to burden a child with something that's extremely important, that has very severe consequences, the child's nerves are not developed enough to take on that burden. And so not only will they not perform better, they won't be able to perform at all. And so the same would happen for us if the Baal Shem Tov was to realize the higher revelations before he realized that he doesn't belong in exile. He wouldn't be properly equipped physically to handle those realizations. Therefore, they wouldn't be revealed to him. So everything is kindness. We're just not seeing reality. Therefore, we wonder why things are the way that they are. We don't understand the basic framework of what we're interacting with. Therefore, we're filled with questions of things that seem to be cruel. Nothing is cruel. Everything is pure kindness. The only thing that can turn to becoming cruel is the spirit that's moving within. And that spirit is being affected by what it's observing outside of it. And so when that spirit goes in the wrong direction, it can get lost for hundreds of years or for thousands of years, just like we are now. We're lost. The spirit, the greater spirit, the collective spirit of humanity is absolutely lost. Lost and fragmented in so many different pieces and parts. And it's been lost for a very long time. We had some great souls that saw beyond what the regular people see. But the masses have been lost, have been disconnected, have been hypnotized by very simple trickery for a very long time. And it requires an awakening. An awakening means that something inside of us realizes that this is not right. This is not the way that it should be. We deserve better. The Creator intended for us better. The Creator didn't go through all this trouble just to make this mess. There's something behind this that is extremely important. It's so important that even if there's this mess, it will still go forward. And so through prayer, that he was always praying with a deep intention. What does it mean, a deep intention? A deep intention can only come from a deep realization, from a deeper view of life. Someone who doesn't see life as important, someone who doesn't recognize the root of importance, can never have a very deep intention. All intentions are going to be based on the shallowness of what they find important. What's the most important thing that they could think of? How deep do they go? How deep do they realize what is taking place? How deeply do they recognize the catastrophe humanity is going through day by day, the trauma that's happening live every moment? And not only are people not helping it, people are adding fuel to the fire. The media, the politicians, the religious leaders, they're all adding fuel to the fire. This is their food. This is how they sustain themselves. This is how they make the past that gave them power continue. And so a recognition that something should be different is the awakening to prayer. The awakening to prayer goes to the level of importance of what do we find important? How much do we recognize what is taking place? How much do we recognize that what is shouldn't be? The more we recognize it, the more deeply we're praying. The more deeply our heart is opening up in order to effect change in the spiritual realms. The more deeply is our intention planted, with its roots going all the way to the infinite light, that desired that reality should exist exactly as it exists, with all these particular settings that we are interacting with. This is his desire. He hasn't missed a beat. We're still mumbling whether we like it or not, but he's made his commitment very clear. Chavtes. This is from the Darkei Tzedek. Abba Shem Tov Gilo, שאף על פי שאדם מספלל בדבקות גודל ואהבה ויראה כרואי, מכל מקום יזור שיהיה לו יחנו לפני השם יזברך כרואי גם כן. That no matter how big the emotion, no matter how big the realization, we need to realize that there is somewhere, there's a truth that already included that realization before we got to it. And that truth includes many more realizations to come. And many more realizations that are not to come, because we don't even have the vessels to interact with them. And so even when we are experiencing a very lofty experience, even when we are praying and attaching ourselves to the highest degree, still there's someone that we're attaching ourselves to that includes that and other things and other situations and other experiences. And by doing this, we're uniting our life force at the source of its power. If we don't do this, if we let the emotion take over until we believe that this is the highest thing that exists, then we are fragmenting the soul, because it won't be there all the time. And so this part is not going to be able to help the other parts. But by uniting it with a bigger being that includes all parts, then even if we move away from there, we still have access to it. All the parts are working for one. And that one is beyond all the parts. That one is greater than all the parts. All the parts are simply small demonstrations of the potential. And so when we're experiencing a deep love or tremendous awe, it's still the same soul that's creating those experiences. It's coming from your soul. The same soul that you had when you were depressed, or when you were anxious, or when life didn't seem worthwhile. That same soul is now creating the awe, creating the love, creating the pleasure, creating whatever it is it's creating. The same soul is creating all those experiences. We must always remember that it's the same soul. Otherwise, we might try to throw away pieces of it, and that just doesn't work. we have to unite all the parts, and then they heal each other. They bring balance to each other. All the parts that we have offended have put other parts out of balance. Everywhere where we've tried to give less than what should have been, something else took more than what should have been. And we have to bring all parts back into balance. This is the nature of the soul. This is how she comes back to health. It's also the nature of the body that represents the soul. All the angels doing the work for the soul have a representation in the body while the soul's in the body. This is how they hook up to each other. Every angel in the spiritual world plugs into an angel in the physical world, and then they work together until the separation. And they develop each other and they know each other. And we experience them as the physical experience that we have from the blood and the parts that are in the body, the cells that we can feel and have access to. Those are the physical angels that are the receiving end. And on the side of the emotion and the thought, we're feeling the spiritual side of that angel and the expressions that it's giving and the sounds that it's making and the words that it's saying. All this is from the spiritual side. It's the spiritual angels that are in the body also now. And so when he is experiencing tremendous love or tremendous awe, it's these same angels that are creating the experience. It's always the same angels that are creating the experience. And to the extent that these angels learn to sing the song of life appropriately, the soul can praise. The soul goes into bliss. The soul goes into ecstasy. To the extent that there's conflict between the different parts, between the different angels, the soul loses power. And then she doesn't want to sing, doesn't feel like it. The angels are not ready, don't want to do it. And so whatever we're going through, we have to attach it to the yichud. The yichud is the source from where they all came out. Otherwise, we will get lost in the details. We'll get lost in the parts. We want to stick to the one that's the source of everything, and then we always have a way to come home. Then we can always know where we are, regardless of what we're experiencing. And so even if we're experiencing tremendous love or awe, positive or negative, we're going to realize that there's a source from where it's coming that's bigger than all of it, that's bigger than this experience, bigger than other experiences, bigger than all experiences put together, the source of all experience. And that's where we're going, that's our home. פעם אחת הספלל לתלמידיו בדבקות גדול ולהוי למחנוע ויקטר גדול מלמעלה. It was davening with his talmidim, and they were going very high. And some of them forgot about the one. They were having such a good time. It was so enjoyable for them to experience the clinging to the truth, the revelation of truth that suddenly became evident was so tempting that they forgot that there's something bigger than that. And this created a kitrug. This created a potential for judgment to come forth. Because as soon as they're going to lose that clinging, as soon as they're going to lose access to that place, how lost are they going to feel? How disconnected, how bitter? Because they didn't attach themselves to the yichud. They didn't attach themselves to the source of all. There was one person there that was praying, and he was attached. He was remembering, and that saved everybody else. Through his attachment, he allowed everybody else to remain attached. And so this is a demonstration of the power of the intention. Every little realization, to us, it seems like this is the least meaningful part because nothing is moving, nothing is happening. Who cares? A rational person, what they call today a rational person, an intellectual, he would say, who cares what you think? If you're doing it, if you're saying it, it's got to be good, it's got to count. And no, the more we learn, the more we realize that It's these little subtleties that the rationalist doesn't even realize that there's a difference, and then there's all the difference. Nothing else matters. Everything the rationalist was trying to accomplish is useless, because the place where the real decisions are made, he's not even seeing that place. To him, that place doesn't exist. To him, that place is meaningless. And in the world of spirit, that's all there is. Everything else is just a mashal. It's a metaphor. It's an expression. It's a way to realize. It's a way to mirror back. It's a way to interact. But it's not the core. It's not the essence. It doesn't have meaning in and of itself. All the meaning comes from this subtle place that to the Western mind doesn't even exist or matter. And so when we learn to tune into that place, we learn to make that place right, immediate change on all dimensions. The physical manifestations change, and the spiritual manifestations change. As soon as we change in the right place, then we see the mercy, then we see the kindness. When we're interacting with reality the way that it always was and it always will be, we immediately recognize the kindness of the Creator. It's evident everywhere. When we're interacting with it from a place of ignorance or from a place of cruelty, then we're hitting our heads against the wall and we don't understand why the wall doesn't realize that it needs to move. Well, the wall is not the one that realizes, it's the human that's supposed to realize. If we're hitting into something, that something is not intelligent. We're supposed to be intelligent. So if something is going to recognize, something is going to give, something is going to budge, something is going to move and adjust itself, it has to be us. It always has to be us. Even the Creator himself, he doesn't move, he doesn't change. Even with him, even in that relationship, if we're hitting ourselves up against him and it's not budging, it's because we're the ones who are supposed to budge, we're the ones who are supposed to move, we're the ones who are supposed to become more intelligent. He's already intelligent as it can be. He understood your problem and your solution and your proposals and what should have been and what you think might have been and could have been. He knew all that already. We can't teach him that. But we can teach ourselves how to learn and go along with that. How to learn to keep our eye on him and not get confused by all the different potentials and possibilities. How to stay connected to reality in a way that when something happens, we immediately try to accept it, to recognize it as the truth, to recognize it as a higher will. It's our will, essentially. We're a limb, we're a portion, we're a representation of that same being that makes all the decisions. And so when something takes place, our process is to recognize that and to accept that. That's the dance that we have with reality. When we accept, that's when we can learn how to make it better, how to improve things. If we're not watching reality, if we're just living in a world of should-bes, we're losing touch. And then reality goes on. Reality happens as it does. Reality is always right. Another one from the Likutei Mikarim, this is Ois Lamed. We saw Hashem Tov Omar, Adam shu koire b'Torah v'roya oiris shel oiser sheb'Torah, af al pi she'eni meven matamim keroi, kim shu koire b'hava gedoyle b'slahavas ein Hashem yisborach medagde kimoi, af she'en omrim keroi. So if a person is reading Torah, even if he doesn't properly understand what he's reading, but he wants to connect to the Chokhmah, his desire is there, his intention is there. And so that intention is visible. That intention makes a difference. That intention is more important than the word that he's reading. Rav Tzadok says, Gadol shemisha shel Torah yosem milimuda. When someone is desiring Torah, when someone wants wisdom, it's bigger than the actual learning of wisdom. And that's because the desire is for all of it. And the learning is limited to the level of where the person is. And so at the level where a person is, maybe it's not even wisdom. Maybe what he defines as wisdom is still quite ignorant. And compared to higher levels, it's always that way. As soon as we go a few levels higher, whatever it was that we had is ignorance. And so the nature of learning is such that wherever you are, yeah, you're better than before, but you're still only there. You're still worse than what's ahead. But the desire for wisdom is the desire for all of it, is the desire to the infinite. That attaches us to a place that the wisdom cannot yet attach us to. And so, in fact, the biggest wisdom is to desire wisdom, because that attaches us to the highest wisdom. If we have no desire for wisdom, no matter how much wisdom we have, we're limited, we're small. We haven't really realized how much we don't know. We haven't really realized the greatness of the Creator, or why we would want to understand Him better. And so every level, when we learn it, we're connecting to that place. But when we have desire to wisdom, we're connecting to the root of wisdom. And so if we're learning, it's not so much the learning as much as it is the desire. This relates a little bit to what we learned before, that the prayer is what revealed to him the biggest secrets, not the learning. The prayer is what brought him to the highest levels, because in prayer he was attaching to the thing itself, not to an expression of it. Learning is known to be greater than prayer. Talmud Torah Keneged Kolam is even against prayer, because learning is the direct attempt to realize the wisdom. It's the most common symptom of a desire for wisdom. Is how will I know if someone has a desire for wisdom? How much is he chasing it? How much is he trying to understand? How much time is he investing in trying to recognize the truth? In trying to know the formula of how do we even approach the truth? So these are the symptoms of desire. And so learning is of the highest level. But to be redeemed, to go beyond the place where the person is in his learning, he needs to connect to something that is beyond his learning. And beyond his learning are other levels of learning. After the prayer, the redemption of the Baal Shem Tov was that he would learn Torah from his own kidneys, from his own heart. And that would reveal to him much deeper wisdom. So again, he was back to learning. So he was saying, it's not the learning that brought me to the higher learning, it's my desire for something deeper that brought me to the higher learning. And so the same here, he's saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will recognize the desire, will recognize the love that's within the act more than the act itself. Because this is really what we're contributing. What we can give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our desire. Everything else, he designed already in a way that if we desire, it should happen. If we don't desire, it shouldn't happen. So this was his design. But where is the switch? Where do we have control? We have control whether we desire it. Once we desire it, the things that come into motion are already part of his design. So mashal atinik she'ava v'hava ma'od. The metaphor is a child that his father really loves him, and mavakesh do him when he's asking something from his father. So it's a little child, hardly knows how to speak. So he's not saying the words properly. The grammar is not there. But the father is excited because of what's being revealed from the heart of the child. The child is revealing a desire. So that gets the father excited because he loves the child. So now there's a revelation from the heart. So is he going to go check how it said and what it said? Is going to go score the sentence? It's looking to the heart of the matter, and since the child is revealing something that's dear to it, the father is all excited. So Afal Pi Shu Megamgem, he's stuttering, he's not pronouncing the words like properly. Oviv Nehen HaMoed, his father is enjoying very much. L'chein, kishe'odam oimer divrei Torah b'ahava, when a person says the Dvar Torah with love, Hashem Yisborach Ahava Moed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves him very much. He's not checking after him to see what he's saying and how he's saying. It's enough that he's saying out of love. That's already something that wakes up the love of the Creator. Diluga means that he's jumping over the letters. He doesn't know how to read the letters in order, and yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves him for it because of his intention, because of his desire. And here again we come back to this realization of how different is the truth from the Western mind, from the Western way of thinking. The Western mind is practical. The Western mind is externally focused. What do I care if you're saying it with love or not? Did you say it properly or not? That's the score. You're going to get all emotional, you're going to get all soft, you're going to get busy with things and feelings, but that's exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is busy with. That's the only thing he cares about. He created everything else to serve that dimension. The dimension that's really meaningful to us is, how do we feel? Who cares the details of what was said and how it was said? Who cares the amounts of money that went here or went there? What was exchanged on the emotional level? That's really what took place over there. That's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking. That's closer to the heart. That's close to the truth. That's also what we are designed for. This is what feeds our body. Money is not what feeds our body. If the money affected how we feel, it fed our body. If the money didn't affect how we feel, it didn't feed anything. Money could also affect the body negatively. Some money could make people feel bad, and then the money is working against them. It's not the external thing. It's what's happening inside. What's the subtle movement? That's the only thing that matters. Someone who can't appreciate that can never understand reality. Doesn't matter how many labs, how many scientists, how many telescopes. They can dissect everything in the world and they will never find a feeling. A feeling cannot be dissected. A feeling is there before. And that feeling is the reason why there are things that can be dissected. And if we don't respect that feeling, if we don't care about that feeling, then everything in life is meaningless. It really is meaningless. The feelings, the emotions, the human heart gives them meaning, literally. That's the way it was designed to be. That was the desire of the one who created all. That's what he chose as best. He gave it very careful consideration. It didn't just happen overnight. It's still happening. It's still not done happening. Everything that's happening here, all the toil, all the sweat and tears, this is all what the Creator is investing in what's going to be. We're part of the investment. The investment of the history in order to create the future. This is what we recognize in sacrifice, is that constantly we're sacrificing for a future that's going to be. And when that future is going to be, then we're going to know why we sacrificed for it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is concerned about how you feel, yes. He's concerned about what things mean to you. Everything you do concerns him to the extent of what does it mean to you? What do you think you're doing? This is why there's such a big difference between a shogig and a mezid. A shogig never gets killed. Because a shogig is not in the category to get killed because he didn't have any wrong intention. Meaning, what offends the Creator is the intention. When one has an intention to create evil within reality, that's offensive to the Creator. When one doesn't have that intention, it doesn't matter what he does, the Creator can never be that offended. There are things that are not good to do. There are things that can cause pain and suffering. And therefore, if we do something that's wrong, we want to do something that's right to bring ourselves back into balance. But it's not offensive. Offensive is only when there's an intention, when there's recklessness, when there's a lack of respect for the investment that the Creator made into life, into reality. Then, when there's a wrong intention, there's an offense. This is how the Creator views reality. This is the design. This is how we were designed to view reality. If we would view reality from this perspective, we will be much more healthy, mentally and emotionally. We will be repulsed by false beliefs. We will reject cruelty. We will know that the Creator is not cruel. We will recognize why humanity has gone so far from their natural design. It's because they're looking at reality upside down. They're trying to drive a car in reverse as if they're going straight. Obviously, they're going to hit some stuff. They're trying to drive reality from the physical side, from the side of the senses, and they don't realize that, no, the driver is the heart. The driver is not in the senses. The driver is not outside. The driver is not in the bank account. The driver is sitting inside. It's in the heart. If we respect that side, then we can have a healthy attachment to reality. If we don't respect that side, there is no attachment to reality. It doesn't matter how clever we're going to be. It doesn't matter how much we're going to learn the rules and even know how to bend them and know how to go beyond them and know how to find favors in all kinds of situations. If we haven't recognized the source of all the decisions, all the thoughts, all the feelings, if we haven't addressed the design that the Creator designed, because this was His desire, this was His will, this was what His intelligence deemed best, if we don't have access to that, we have access to nothing. And the quality of our experience is only going to deteriorate. It doesn't matter how fancy our car or our house or our clothes or anything that we own is. Our internal experience is going to deteriorate if we don't pay attention to the internal experience and know how it works and know what makes it better and what makes it worse. And it's not the house and it's not the car. And it's not the money. And this everybody knows already. Everybody can see it day to day. We see the people who have everything and they're very miserable. And so that's not where it is. We have to stop fighting over it, because even when we win the fight, we still didn't win anything real. We still didn't really gain. So we fight our entire life, and then whether we won or we lost our chance to be here. We lost our chance to really express what the divine will desired when it created us. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu libo boya. And that means He wants what's inside of us. It's not a trick. It's very intuitive, it's very simple. Good is good and bad is bad. But we have to stick to what's inside of us in order to realize what's going on outside, because the world has been very confused. Once the world is confused, it's not simple at all. To undo all the confusion, all the ignorance, and all the cruelty, we need tremendous wisdom. But at the essence, the design was simple. The design is kind. The design was meant to make us feel safe, to make us feel confident. So may we find our access. May we find our way into our own hearts, so we can offer that heart to the intelligence that created it and realize His kindness, realize His compassion. realize his true desire for us, to bypass everything that we've picked up from birth and go back to the connection that we've had to him before. And that takes us back to a place of safety. That's where we belong. That's where we can thrive. That's when we can be ourselves. May it happen soon.